Today we shall discuss about urinary tract infection. At first you have to know that urinary tract infection in adult is so much of difference in urinary tract infection in pediatric age group. This is because in pediatric age group sometimes the urinary tract infection may be associated with congenital or anatomical abnormality of the urinary tract. And this congenital or anatomical abnormality of the urinary tract, that is sometimes it leads to obstruction of the urine outflow and resulting in stasis of the urine, which in turn result in urinary tract infection. So at first let us discuss the important differentiating point between pediatrics and adult UTI. In adults, the infective microorganism or the bacteria which causes urinary tract infection gain access to the urinary tract via urethra. In contrast to pediatric age group, these infective microorganisms gain access to the urinary tract via hematogenous route. So the mode of or the route of infection in urinary tract infection in pediatric age group is via hematogenous route. In contrast to adult, where the infective microorganism gain access to the urinary tract via the urethra. In adults, the females are usually affected more than the male. This is because in females, the urethra is of short size as well as it is in close proximity with the anus. In contrast to pediatric age group, as the mode of infection is not through the urethra but it is through the hematogenous route, usually in infants, the females and the males are equally affected by urinary tract infection. So these are the two major contrasting features between adults and pediatric UTI. What are the microbes that are involved in urinary tract infection? As you know that Escherichia coli is the most common organism causing urinary tract infection. In addition to Escherichia coli, Proteus, Staph aureus can also cause urinary tract infection. Klebsiella, which is also a gram-negative bacteria, can cause urinary tract infection. As we can see that the gram-negative bacteria mostly predominates in urinary tract infection. Now let us discuss the clinical features of urinary tract infection in pediatric age group. As we know that in adults, urinary tract infection usually present to us with burning micturition, increased frequency of micturition associated with fever and abdominal pain. This abdominal pain can occur in the flanks if kidney is involved, that is in pyelonephritis, that is the upper urinary tract infection, and it can occur as a suprapubic pain when the urinary bladder is involved, that is the cystitis. In contrast to pediatric age group, the signs and symptoms or the clinical manifestation differs from the adult group. So let us see by dividing this pediatric age group into the clinical manifestation of urinary tract infection. We can divide it as neonates, that is birth to 28 days. What are the signs and symptoms of urinary tract infection in neonate? In neonates, the urinary tract infection usually present to us with signs and symptoms of sepsis. Any kind of infection in neonate present to us with sepsis. We cannot differentiate based on our clinical features that which kind of infection this neonate is suffering from. So we collect the different types of signs and symptoms and put it under one heading, that is sepsis, which means that the microbe or the bacteria has gained access to this neonate in some way and leading to sepsis. So sepsis can either present to us with fever or it can present to us with hypothermia. Hypothermia is an indication of, or it is an result of sepsis in neonates. And sepsis in neonate can either present to us with fever or it can present to us with hypothermia. In addition to fever or hypothermia, this neonate can have vomiting, diarrhea. As I told you, all the signs and symptoms of this infection in neonate is non-specific and it usually present to us with a sepsis, which include fever or hypothermia. In addition to this fever and hypothermia, the child can have vomiting and diarrhea, as well as the child can have jaundice and the child will be a lethargic child. So these are the signs and symptoms of urinary tract infection or any kind of infection in neonate which usually present to us with sepsis. So what are the signs and symptoms in infant? That is up to 1 year. Infant will present to us with a high grade fever and increased frequency of micturition. In infant, the signs or the symptoms of urinary tract infection is usually a high grade fever and increased frequency of micturition. And if the urinary tract infection is occurring due to presence of some congenital or anatomical abnormality of the urinary tract, as I have discussed, this can present to us with some additional signs and symptoms like that of crying during voiding. Why there is crying during voiding? As this congenital abnormality has led to obstruction of the urine outflow, which in turn is causing straining in the patient or in the child, and this straining produces pain, and this pain leads to crying during voiding in urinary tract infection. So crying during voiding or micturition is also an indication of obstructive uropathy or some congenital abnormality of the urinary tract. And if the congenital abnormality is leading to an obstructive uropathy, that is obstruction to the urine outflow, it can also present to us with dribbling of the urine. The urine comes out in a drop. So dribbling of the urine or an abnormal urine stream can be present in a child of urinary tract infection. All these symptoms and signs like that of high fever, increased frequency is a sign and symptoms of urinary tract infection. And if this urinary tract infection is associated with an obstructive uropathy, this in turn can produce some other signs and symptoms like that of crying during voiding due to straining, which in turn is producing pain, dribbling of the urine, that is urine is coming out in drops due to obstruction, and abnormal urine stream. So these are the important history that you have to ask to know whether or not there is any presence of congenital or anatomical abnormality of the urinary tract which is leading to recurrent urinary tract infection in this child. So now let us classify the urinary tract infection. So urinary tract infection can be classified into upper urinary tract infection and lower urinary tract infection. So if the urinary tract or the infection is involving the urethra, we call it as urethritis. If it is involving the bladder, we call it as cystitis, and if it is involving the kidney, we call this infection as a pyelonephritis. Pyelonephritis is an upper urinary tract infection, whereas cystitis and urethritis forms the lower urinary tract infection. So, in pediatrics age group, it is not very much of importance in classifying this urinary tract infection as an upper urinary tract infection and a lower urinary tract infection. This is because in pediatrics age group, usually less than 5 years of age, the child who suffers from this infection almost always suffer from upper urinary tract infection. So, classifying it as an upper and lower urinary tract infection does not change our treatment plan. We have to assume that the child is suffering from an upper urinary tract infection and treat as an upper urinary tract infection, that is pyelonephritis. So this classification is not important in pediatric age group because the child who suffers from UTI almost always suffer from upper UTI. So this does not change our treatment plan, and hence this classification is not important in pediatrics age group. The another classification is based on the complication of this urinary tract infection, and we classify it as a complicated urinary tract infection versus simple urinary tract infection. If the child has a high grade fever which is more than 39 degree, in addition to having this high grade fever, if the child has signs and symptoms of systemic inflammation, that is, and gastroenteritis, that is vomiting, diarrhea, renal angle tenderness, and altered renal function test, so if all this is present, that is the fever, vomiting, diarrhea, that is the signs of symptoms of gastroenteritis, renal angle tenderness, and altered renal function test, we classify this type of urinary tract infection as a complicated urinary tract infection, which is also causing gastroenteritis and also causing the functional abnormality of the kidney, which is leading to altered renal function tests as evident in laboratory examination. So we classify this type of urinary tract infection as a complicated UTI, and in contrast to simple UTI, there will be presence of low grade fever and the other signs and symptoms of localized signs and symptoms of UTI, that is the burning micturition, increased frequency of micturition, and abdominal pain. This classification of complicated UTI and simple UTI is important because in complicated UTI the duration of antibiotic is somewhat longer versus simple UTI, in which we treat the patient with a short course of antibiotic for a short duration. So this classification is important, that is the complicated UTI versus the simple UTI. So now let us discuss how we will diagnose the patient of urinary tract infection. As we know that the infection is present in the urinary tract, and we have to isolate this infective microorganism or this infective microorganism from the urine, so we can examine the urine to identify which microbe is causing this urinary tract infection. So in diagnostic investigation, urine examination, So we have to examine the urine for the presence of microbe or the bacteria which is causing this urinary tract infection. But it is very difficult to collect a urine sample from the child, that is from the neonates and from the infants. You cannot ask the neonate or the infant to void in your sample container. So how you will collect urine sample in neonates and infants and in younger child who cannot void in your sample container? So we can go for suprapubic aspiration of the urine. We can directly insert a needle through the abdominal wall and pierce the bladder wall to reach inside the bladder cavity and aspirate the urine directly from the bladder. And if any bacteria is seen in this aspirated urine sample directly from the bladder, we can confirm that this patient is suffering from urinary tract infection. As because normally there is no normal flora in the urinary bladder. The bladder is usually sterile in a normal individual. So any bacteria that is isolated from the urinary bladder will confirm our diagnosis of urinary tract infection. So in suprapubic aspirated urine sample, any colonies or bacteria will diagnose our urinary tract infection. If suprapubic aspiration of the urine is not possible, then we can go for catheterization. We can insert a catheter through the urethra to reach the urinary bladder, and whatever the urine comes out, we collect in a sample container and send it for microbiological analysis. And as this time we are using a procedure through which via the urethra we are reaching the urinary bladder, and as this can contaminate or this can be contaminated by some bacteria which is in the urethra. So this time if the urine sample contain more than 50,000 colonies per ml, then we confirm that this patient is suffering from urinary tract infection, as this is a procedure which is involving the urethra. As we are inserting a catheter through the urethra, some bacterial flora from the urethra can contaminate our urine sample. So this time the colony count for our diagnosis of urinary tract infection increases to more than 50,000 per ml. And if catheterization is not possible, or if it is a older children who can void in your sample container, we can ask the child to void in a sample container. Usually the midstream urine sample is collected, and this type of sample is known as clean catch sample. It is called clean catch sample as the child directly voids in your sample container, and we do not collect this urine from a levator. So this type of sample is known as clean catch sample, and usually the midstream urine sample is collected in the container. And when we use the term clean catch sample, here comes the concept of significant bacteria in the urine. So what is significant bacteria in the urine? Significant bacteria in the urine is presence of significant amount of bacteria in the urine which is leading to urinary tract infection. A cutoff is set that if the urine contains this amount of bacteria, which means this amount of bacteria can produce urinary tract infection in any individual. So if we take a urine sample and we find that this urine contains an amount of bacteria which is significant, and it can produce a urinary tract infection, we call that this urine sample contain a significant amount of bacteria to produce urinary tract infection. So this significant bacteria is usually 10 to the power 5 per ml of urine. If this amount of bacteria is present in the urine, we call it as a significant bacteria in the given urine sample. So, and this bacteria should be of a single species. Why this bacteria should be of a single species? Because it will prove that our sample is a non-contaminated sample. As if more species or more variety of bacteria is present in the urine sample, this will usually give us a hint that this urine sample is contaminated from other sources, which is leading to a mixed type of bacteria in our sample. So usually it should be of a single species containing 10 to the power 5 per ml of bacteria. To be called it as a significant number of bacteria present in the urine, which confirm our diagnosis of urinary tract infection, and this concept comes into play in a clean catch urine sample. If it is a suprapubic aspiration, as I told you, normally bladder do not contain any bacteria, or normal bacterial flora is absent in the bladder, so any colonies isolated from suprapubic aspiration will confirm the diagnosis of urinary tract infection. In contrast, if we use a catheter or if a urinary catheter is inserted, as this procedure will pass through the urethra and sometimes contaminate our catheter as well as urine, so cutoff is set little high, that is 50,000, more than 50,000 per ml. And if we take a clean catch urine sample, as the urine comes through the urethra through our container, this procedure will also contaminate the urine from bacterial flora. So in this time, the cutoff is set little more higher, that is more than 10 to the power 5 per ml, to be called as significant bacteria in the urine. So the other method in which we can detect the presence of urinary tract infection is the dipstick method. What is this dipstick method? Usually the strip are being sold in the market. We have to dip the stick in the urine sample, and based on the change in the color due to presence of certain enzyme liberated by the bacteria, will confirm our diagnosis of urinary tract infection. If the bacteria is present in the urine or the urinary tract, will produce certain kind of enzyme, usually the leukocyte esterase based dipstick test is being currently sold in the market. So this is a quick diagnostic method based on the enzyme leukocyte esterase, will help us diagnose the urinary tract infection. For screening purposes, sometimes WBC count is being used to screen the people, or if he or she is suffering from a urinary tract infection. The WBC count in the urine. If the WBC count in the urine is more than 10 WBC or leukocyte in an uncentrifuged sample, will help us identify or will help us suspect that this patient might be suffering from an urinary tract infection. If more than 10 leukocytes per cubic millimeter of urine is present in uncentrifuged sample, if the urine sample is now not centrifuged, and if the normal urine sample contain 10 leukocytes per cubic millimeter, this will help us suspect that this patient might be suffering from urinary tract infection. And if in centrifuge sample, if the WBC count is more than 5 leukocytes in centrifuge sample, this will also help us suspect that this patient might be suffering from urinary tract infection. This type of screening procedure is usually adopted in antenatal screening of the mother, as there is sometimes asymptomatic bacteria in the urine. So This procedure will help us early identification of urinary tract infection in treatment. In no case asymptomatic bacteria in the urine is treated. Asymptomatic bacteria means that significant amount of bacteria is present in the urine. That is, more than 10 to the power 5 bacteria is present in the urine sample, but it is not leading to any signs or symptoms of UTI. So we call it this type of bacteria as an asymptomatic bacteria in the urine, that is the asymptomatic bacteriuria. And in no case asymptomatic bacteria in the urine should be treated except in pregnancy, because this asymptomatic bacteria in the urine in pregnancy will lead to an overt disease, maybe later during the course of the pregnancy. So it should be treated in pregnancy, and in no other case it should be treated. So this was about the WBC count and the screening, which is based on WBC count. Once we have diagnosed the patient suffering from urinary tract infection, we have to do culture and sensitivity. This will help us guide our modalities or treatment, will help us identify which type of antibiotics we are going to use in this patient. So these are usually the diagnostic tests adopted to diagnose a patient of urinary tract infection. Now let us discuss about the management. Management of urinary tract infection. As this is an infection, our usually treatment modality is antibiotics. So today we will learn a fascinating thing about this antibiotic. Whenever you are using antibiotics, what are the important points that should come in your mind? At first you have to know whether my antibiotic is an empirical antibiotic therapy or whether it is a targeted antibiotic therapy. Not only treating the patient of UTI, but whenever you are using antibiotic to treat any kind of infection, what are the points that should come in your mind? At first you should know that whether your antibiotic is an empirical antibiotic therapy or your antibiotic is a targeted antibiotic therapy. This targeted antibiotic therapy means you are using antibiotics which is targeted for a particular bacteria after when the culture and sensitivity report has arrived. Whereas this empirical antibiotic therapy, it is based on the experience or knowledge of the physician. This antibiotic is used before arrival of culture and sensitivity report. It is used based on the physician knowledge of the most prevailing strain of bacteria in the society or in a given population. The physician knows that this infection is usually caused by this particular strain or this particular group of bacteria. So if I will use this type of antibiotic, this infection can usually be controlled. So based on the physician experience and based on the physician knowledge, the antibiotic which is used before the arrival of the culture and sensitivity report, this type of antibiotic therapy, we call it as a empirical antibiotic therapy. In contrast to targeted antibiotic therapy, it is usually targeted for a particular bacteria based on the resistance and sensitivity pattern of the bacteria. So if you are using an empirical antibiotic therapy, and in between, if the culture and sensitivity report has arrived, then you can somehow switch or change your antibiotic therapy based on your culture and sensitivity report. So at first thing you have to know while treating any kind of infection with antibiotic is whether your antibiotic therapy is an empirical antibiotic therapy or whether it is a targeted antibiotic therapy. The second thing you have to know is route. What should be your preferred route of administration of this antibiotic? So what are the parameters that will help you decide that what should be my preferred route of administration of my antibiotic, whether it will be a parenteral antibiotic therapy or whether it will be an oral antibiotic therapy. So what are the parameters that will help you decide that what will be my preferred mode of administration? Suppose if the patient is too small, usually less than 3 months, so you cannot administer the patient or the child as an oral antibiotic therapy, because this child cannot take a oral medication or cannot tolerate this oral medication. In such situation, you have to go for parenteral antibiotic therapy. And if the child is vomiting and the child is having diarrhea, in such situation it is better to avoid an oral antibiotic therapy, as the child will vomit out your antibiotic and now the antibiotic will be of no use. So in such situation you have to go for parenteral antibiotic therapy. If the child is so severely ill that you don't have time to act the oral antibiotic, to use the oral antibiotic, and the action of this oral antibiotic, as it will take a longer duration, and now to save the child's life you have to go for an parenteral antibiotic therapy. So these are the parameters that will help you decide whether my antibiotic will be a parenteral antibiotic therapy or it will be an oral antibiotic therapy. Now once you have used an parenteral antibiotic therapy in a severely ill patient, and now your antibiotic is producing action and leading to recovery of the patient, so after some duration of parenteral antibiotic therapy, now you can switch over to oral antibiotic therapy, as now the patient condition will be improving, usually after 48 to 72 hours. So these are the points which will help you decide what will be your preferred mode of administration of antibiotics. The next point you have to decide is your dose of antibiotic. This is based on the body weight, on the body weight of the patient, which will help you calculate the dose of your antibiotic. Different antibiotics we can prescribe, it is the recommended dose of different antibiotics is based on the weight of the patient. So you have to study the dose of the antibiotic based on the weight of the patient. Different antibiotics are given in a different dosage form. The next most important thing regarding treatment with antibiotic is the duration of the antibiotic. For what duration you are going to use this antibiotic in a patient. As I told you earlier in my lecture, that for complicated urinary tract infection we are using this antibiotic for somewhat longer duration. In contrast to simple UTI, the antibiotic therapy is usually given for somewhat shorter duration. So this point is important. The duration of the antibiotic therapy should be kept in your mind while treating a patient with antibiotics. If you give a short duration of antibiotic therapy, this will lead to resistance of the organism, or it can lead to recurrence of the disease, and the disease will now not complete, or the infection will now not completely be healed if you use the short duration of antibiotic, if it less than the recommended duration. So using the short duration will create resistance of this particular antibiotic, as well as sometimes it will lead to recurrence or reactivation of the disease. So you have to use this duration, you have to calculate the proper duration and dose of the antibiotic before you use any kind of antibiotic. So these are the 4 parameters you have to keep in your mind while prescribing antibiotics in any kind of patient. In urinary tract infection, as it is or the majority of the urinary tract infection is caused by gram-negative organism, third generation cephalosporin is a very good choice in treating a patient of urinary tract infection, as it is active against gram-negative bacilli. So if you are using an oral antibiotic, you have to select a third generation oral antibiotic from cephalosporin group. That is, you can select either cefixime or cefuroxime. If you are using an injectable antibiotic for a patient, you can select the injectable antibiotic in cephalosporin group. You can either select ceftriaxone. So Based on all these 4 points which I told you will help you in your clinical practice while treating a patient with antibiotic. The next thing in treating a patient of UTI is a counseling. You have to give proper counseling to patient of urinary tract infection. As the presence of bacteria in the urine is leading to urinary tract infection, you have to ask the patient to increase the fluid intake, as this will flush the kidney, ureter, urinary bladder and urethra, and will also result in flushing of the bacteria from the urinary tract, which may help in some way. In addition, you have to ask the patient for frequent voiding, as frequent voiding will decrease stasis of the urine and will help in some way. So these are the major points while treating a patient of urinary tract infection. Thank you.